Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. My friends, this is the smoking gun. If you needed any more confirmation that we are on the precipice of a major nuclear incident, look no further than the video that you're about to watch today. Guys, the Department of Health and Human Services of the United States government has released some very interesting information about a purchase that they have made. Now, this agency is associated with BARDA. That is the Biomedical Advanced Research and Developmental Authority. They are responsible for the administration of, get this, strategic preparedness and response. Anytime you hear that word strategic, that's a euphemism for the mother of all nuclear wars. Strategic weapons, strategic command, it's all ado with big FU nuclear weapons. They are in charge of medical countermeasures against bioterrorism, including CBRN threats. Now, they have decided to purchase $300 million of anti-radiation sickness medication. This is very expensive stuff. This isn't the potassium iodide that I've been warning you guys that the government has been stockpiling for months, which of course they have, and I know they have because I know the distributors who sell it to them. And once again, it's all lining up, and I hate to be right, because the last thing I want to be right about is my kids having no future because we decide to do something stupid like this Zelensky guy who's calling for, get this, a preemptive strike on Russia in order to deter them from launching a nuke on Ukraine. Can you believe that? Imagine what the outcome of a preventative strike on Russia would be. The outcome would be we can kiss this civilization goodbye is what it would be. Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but I just want to put this in perspective for you. Let's lay out all the anecdotal evidence and you can come to your own conclusions, because I know there's still some normalcy Normans out there folding the laundry while the husband is scrambling to get all the stuff to go into the bunker. If you ever seen that movie, what is it, The Day After? I think that's the one. Go watch that movie. That will show you what the normalcy bias is all about. We have the government stockpiling Thyrosafe, which is an anti-thyroid uptake medication used to prevent the uptake of radiation through the thyroid. Okay, that's been flying off the shelves. We have government buying $300 million in radiation pills. We have bombers, short-range ballistic missiles. We have, or missile delivery systems, I should say. We have MiG-31s outfitted with Kinzhal missiles. We have nuclear submarines, the biggest ever created in terms of the nuclear warhead that it's carrying. That is the Belgorod, which carries 6 Poseidon self-propelled nuclear drones, which all have very large nuclear warheads on them, on the move. Most recently spotted, I think just a day ago, in the Arctic. It went off the map and then it came back on the radar. We have Ukraine and many other European countries handing out iodide pills. We have Zelensky calling for this preventative strike. Don't forget, we had the nuclear PSA given out by New York just a few months ago. You know, when the girl came on and she's like, this is what you do in a nuclear war. And it looked like something that they had drawn up in half a day and paid somebody on Fiverr to produce. Yeah, that. Okay, then you have, of course, these billboards, but posters that people are seeing around New York subway that tell you what to do in case of a radiation emergency, because we know those just happen every day, right? We have the looking glass plane that was just spotted on flightradar.com, which is a Boeing E-6B. This is the communications relay and strategic airborne command post. This provides survivable airborne command of the U.S. strategic and non-strategic forces, that is tactical forces, that is military forces. This is what goes up in the air if they're worried about communications breaking down because they have satellites shot down, which is what the Russians are mulling right now. There's that word again. Yeah, so that was seen on flight radar. They turned their transponder off when they went over the Atlantic Ocean. We also have the increased tension on the Korean Peninsula. You have all the stuff going on with China and Taiwan. Of course, North Korea just fired off another 2 missiles after South Korea and the United States did their own sort of tit-for-tat exercise to put North Korea on notice that, hey, we notice you shooting missiles over Japan and people having to take cover, literally. We have North Korea doing more missile tests this year than any other year on record. Okay, we have China putting its aircraft carrier killer nukes on display to get the attention of the United States government. We have RS-28 Sarmat missiles in Russia going into mass production this fall. We, of course, have the Poseidon nuclear submarines that are out at sea. We have many European countries warning about nuclear war. Of course, every military strategist with half a brain and geopolitical analyst knows that we are at the highest, I repeat, highest risk of nuclear war that we have ever been at in history. Remember, the government just bought $300 million worth of this medication, and that's all we know on paper. That probably means, if it's gotten out, that they've probably already been buying other stuff through back channels. Anyways, we have the Serbian president, Aleksandar Vučić, or Vučić, I don't know how you pronounce that, saying that in the next 2 months, it's likely that we are going to see a major global conflict. Okay? This is the thing, guys. You do not want to spook the markets. You do not want to spook people into a panicked frenzy. And you definitely don't want to do anything, especially around election time, even though I believe in the deep state. And I think that, you know, there's, regardless of who's in power, we're going to be on the same trajectory anyways. I know some people might disagree with that. It is what it is. Regardless, it is an election season. You don't want to do anything that's going to rock the boat. And all it would take is the whisper of a real deal nuclear scare, which is why I think the markets have been tanking all year, because this is a very real threat that the smart money is aware of. And the day that the bomb actually drops, the day that, even if it's a tactical, even if it's a Davy Crockett-sized 20-ton operationally tactical nuclear warhead that you could fire out of a shotgun, it doesn't matter what it is, the markets are going to be spooked beyond belief. Guys, do you need more evidence that we're at a higher DEFCON level? Do you seriously think that the government is just going to come out and tell you when we're at that level? Because you know what the consequence would be. Markets crash, people panic, people start freaking out. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to hear it. Ever. I mean, even with the pandemic thing, right? When it was first starting, they were downplaying it because they were probably worried it was actually going to be really, really bad, because they've seen all this stuff happening in China with people, guarding their towns and people being welded into their houses. So they were actually downplaying it at the start. Recall? They didn't want to spook the markets. The WHO, I'm sure they have a hotline to the White House, and they're like, hey, just, hold on a sec here. We want to make sure. And then, of course, when it turned out to be a little less lethal than a lot of people thought, that's when they blew it out of proportion. They're never going to tell you when the shit's hitting the fan. You must rely on your own critical thinking skills. That doesn't mean you jump on the flat earth train and you just, seek out. You obviously want to have evidence, but you need to understand also that it's likely going to be this collection of anecdotes. And these aren't really anecdotes. I mean, these are real deal things that are happening right now. You have a war between the two biggest superpowers and the three biggest superpowers on the horizon. You don't need any more evidence than that. But this, my friends, this medication that they are buying, that BARDA is buying, that is going to treat people with radiation sickness, and this stuff is going to be probably worth more than gold. $300 million. I think what I've seen, the estimates for one dosage cycle of this is probably $1,000 to $3,000. I don't know if they get it at wholesale prices. I don't know if that's retail prices or what, but that's enough doses for a lot of people, an awful lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people. So that's still a small fraction of the population, right? So either they're buying it for VIP, this stuff is stockpiled in the deep underground military bunkers that we aren't even aware of where they are. Even if you know where the entrance to a bunker is nowadays, the boring technology and the tunneling technology is so good that it's likely that they're probably tunneling underneath that and going out in all directions for miles and miles. So even if it was targeted with a nuclear weapon, you wouldn't be able to, unless you had some sort of spies to know exactly what the layout of the underground military base was, you wouldn't be able to effectively target with even the biggest of bunker busting nuclear weapons. So the government's prepping for shit hit the fan. I mean, come on, guys. Like, you want them to just broadcast it on CNN? Could you imagine what would happen if they did that? Give me a break. What else do we got going on here? Okay, so this is interesting, guys. Now, take this one with a grain of salt, but apparently there's this Russian anti-satellite system, which is called the Peresvet laser system. It's capable of disabling satellites at a distance of up to 1,500 kilometers. This may be another twist in the chain of events that ensues in Ukraine, okay? These satellites, among other satellites that are technically, I believe space is like international waters, so to speak. As far as I know, I could be wrong about that. There might be some geostationary satellites that, you're allowed to control up to a certain, I don't know, this is out of my pay scale, all right? But the HIMARS systems that are being used in Ukraine are utilizing these satellites. So technically, the Russians could say that, hey, your satellites are helping kill our dudes, so we're going to take out these satellites, and the United States says, hey, that's our satellite, but that satellite was helping Ukraine to effectively target different places within Russia. Now, I don't know how good this anti-satellite technology is. I know that they have the S-500 and the S-550 weapon systems that can actually kinetically take out satellites. But they are speculating now, these Russian think tanks are brainstorming ways that they can respond to what they claim is an attack on the Nord Stream pipeline from the Americans. Emphasis on what they said, not what I said. Don't cancel me, please. I just bring you guys the objective facts, okay? So that is concerning because that is another inflection point, potential inflection point in this major conflict that is ensuing. The Kremlin has accused Zelensky of trying to start World War III. Like I said, he's suggesting that we do a preventative strike on Russia to prevent them from using tactical nuclear weapons. The Ukrainians are very concerned that they're going to use a tactical nuke. Well, the fact of the matter is, even though the smallest nuke ever created was still twice the size of any conventional bomb ever made, the Moab or the Phobab or whatever it was, which I think it was 11 tons versus like 20 tons was the Davy Crockett little tiny nuclear missile. Okay, even though it was twice as big as that, the fact of the matter is, are they really concerned about the use of tactical nukes when they're being inundated with an equivalent amount of artillery every single day? I don't know. And obviously, the logic is silly to think that you can just preemptively shoot within Russia, of all places, and especially coming out of the pipes of NATO, that they are not going to respond with likely their strategic nuclear arsenal. It's just asinine. So I hope that common sense prevails, and hopefully the tail isn't wagging the dog when it comes to that particular issue. Poland is now seeking out nuclear sharing with NATO. They want to be a part of the whole nuclear sharing club. The United States has nuclear weapons that are deployed in Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey. Poland wants in on that. Now, Belarus is saying, hey, wait a minute. If you get nukes, then we want nukes too. Now, if you didn't know, Belarus already had an agreement, I believe, made with Russia earlier this year that they could share nukes. So this is just more incentive or more, motivation for them to get those nukes sooner. They already have the delivery systems. And remember, if you have the delivery systems, you effectively, because usually you would get those delivery systems from your partner, like your superpower partner who made them for you, as a way of ensuring that if nuclear war broke out, you would take their side and shoot missiles from their location, okay? My phone is going to die here right away. I never planned this out right. We got panic Britons rushing to buy defunct nuclear bunkers. As the threats of nuclear war escalate, everybody's looking for a bunker. If you want, there's a bunker for sale in Austria right now. Looks like I'm almost dead here. And Survival Lily just did a video on it. Go and check that video out. Tell her I sent you. I know the guy who owns the bunker. If you want a line to him, I can actually get you in touch with him. We're supposed to do a video on it, but it's just kind of fallen through for various reasons, but hopefully we'll get to it at some point. Now, as I was saying before, the US and Russia have tried, or at least symbolically, are mulling over doing this START treaty, or rebooting the START treaty, the Strategic Nuclear Arms Reduction Treaty, but that's pretty much too little too late in my personal opinion. But it's a sign that things are maybe not as bad as they seem, although this is exactly what you would see in the run-up to nuclear Armageddon. Is you would see both sides trying to reassure its population that they were mulling things over. Okay, Russia ready to send gas via Nord Stream 2 again. Apparently there was 4 lines. 3 of those lines were destroyed. Apparently one line is still in working order, just needs to be approved, of course. You have this situation now with Germany, United States, this Mexican standoff of sorts where the United States obviously does not want the Russians doing business because they're calling it weaponized gas. I never understood that. I mean, really think about that terminology. Weaponizing gas? Really? I mean, you could say that about any producer of anything. Are we weaponizing food that we ship to the Middle East or anywhere else? Come on, guys. You're smarter than that. There's definitely dependency there, right? I mean, we're not naive to that, but weaponize, that's kind of silly. Anyways, what else do we got going on here? There's some talk, and I'm not even going to read this because I know the tinfoilers are going to run with it, and they're going to take the soundbite, and they're going to, characterize me as a flat earth type. But apparently there's some noise being made that Ukraine and NATO might be preparing some sort of provocation. You didn't hear it from me. I don't even necessarily believe it. I think it's pretty far-fetched, to be honest. I don't think it would necessarily serve the purpose, but you never know. That could just be Russian propaganda put out before they actually do something in order to try to make it seem like, hey, see, we warned you. They did it now. Look at that. What do we got going on here? Pentagon is blacklisting DJI drones. You know those funny drones, the under 249 gram drones that you can still legally fly without a license in our police state that is Canada? Yeah, they're blacklisting those because they're made in China, and I guess China is doing something funny with those. Anyways, you have the House Democrats wanting to take all the U.S. weapons out of Saudi Arabia because of this oil cut. Things are heating up there as well. Saudi Arabia and the UAE's drastic cut in oil production, despite President Biden's overtures to both countries in recent months, is a hostile act against the United States and a clear signal they have chosen to side with Russia in its war on Ukraine. Well, actually, raising the price of oil would actually help shale and tar sand. I know people don't like me to use that word because there's so many snowflakes out there. Tar sand and shale oil, that would actually help them because it would raise the price of oil, increase the profit margins. So I don't understand what the big deal is. I guess the big deal is that gas prices are going through the roof again. Record gas prices in Vancouver. We got shizzy hitting the fizzy all around. All I can say, my friends, is cherish the days, guys, and prepare for a major CBRN event because it feels like we are going full steam ahead into a brick wall. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.